In this week's class, we began talking about individual behavior in organizations. And we first introduced the topic by talking about the division of labor that exists in organizations. That for us has been a defining feature of complex organizations, and the focus of the class is managing and leading in organizations. And so that puts us in touch with and inquiring about how do we effectively manage within a division of labor. And the division of labor is characterized by this kind of aspect of people doing different pieces of the whole. And so how do we manage to, with all these people doing pieces of the whole, achieve efficiency and effectiveness? And we need to exercise control. We have to have control over basically who's part of the organization, what the job assignments are, and then also to monitor and encourage employee work behavior. The first model that we're talking about is a model that's descriptive of individual behavior in organization is the need satisfaction model of individual behavior. And the need satisfaction model of individual behavior flows out of the kind of difficulties people found with scientific management. It flows out of this notion that in human relations management that people are somehow their jobs are lacking meaning, they're being violently opposed, and we talked about in class that really what the way to think about satisfaction is in contrast with the alienation that results when people are separated, their identity is separated from their work. And this has a very soft kind of mushy feel to it. And it definitely is kind of mushy, but the notion is that to the degree to which people are satisfied, they enjoy their work, they're connected with their work provides meaning, personal meaning to them, then they will be satisfied and we hope more motivated. Because need satisfaction model basically says that the only way people can be motivated is by changes in their work circumstances, then there's this whole focus on job design. So as we talked about in class, the need satisfaction model, we can't really change a person's particular needs. Those are something that's internal to them. The satisfaction they derive is a direct result of how their job characteristics meet their needs, and it's through that satisfaction that we get what we hope is productive work behavior. So the net result is our lever in this situation, the switch that we can twist is job design. And there is, a whole bunch of literature on job design. There are three basic methods. There's job engineering, which comes to us directly from scientific management, simplification, concern about tools, all the things we've already talked about. The kind of one impulse is to basically say, well, the jobs are boring. So what we need to do is add, enrich, or basically enlarge jobs by making them less boring by adding more tasks from task variety to increase how interesting the jobs are. And this notion of job enlargement also includes an approach that's called job rotation, in which people move between different very specialized tasks and again, the whole intent of this approach is to make the job more interesting, to have job variety. The approach called job enrichment seeks to add responsibility to jobs, and so it actually tries to and recommends giving people control over scheduling, control over basically quality relationships, the users of their work, and getting feedback. And so this implicitly, in a lot of ways, is basically transferring a lot of decision making from the management structure, from really first-line supervisors, to employees. Now, a couple of issues with this. One is it's highly problematic in terms of production systems, why are they the way they are? Very often, it's not, people don't design jobs so they'll be boring. The jobs are boring because they're machine-paced, capital equipment purchases and robotics is driving the job and determining what the job is. And so in one sense, um, certainly as managers and supervisors, as people who are, maybe even charged with and have responsibility for designing jobs, this power equalization is very problematic. I mean, we often can't do it. The other thing that we find in enrichment efforts to add responsibility is that first line management opposition is frequent and also sometimes very spirited. And in fact, one of the reasons people very often are trying to seek to enrich jobs is to eliminate some supervisory positions. People know this, and so efforts to kind of implement various kind of job and design initiatives very often have this kind of subtle resistance and opposition. They're hard to implement. People sometimes just kill them in the implementation side. And so just the understanding that when we start talking about treating, as the needs satisfaction model does, the employee as this kind of sanctuary, that employee is not the only employee in the system. Other employees are in this system, and very often what we're giving to maybe a first-line employee, we're taking away from a supervisory employee. And to the degree that system is in place and that supervisory position has an opportunity to subvert the implementation, it's seen in practice, they will do it. As we concluded with the needs satisfaction model, and the notes lay out kind of the basics of it, is, the real weakness of needs satisfaction model is this sense of limited options. Now, we've talked about it, and it's important in the framework of the course because it's a starting point for thinking about individual behavior. But one of the reasons we've talked about it is it's really pervasively distributed. A lot of people have had this in business programs, and you're going to be entering a work environment where people went to business school 30 years ago versus what you're learning now. And you're going to see a lot of people know Maslow's needs hierarchy, and that's what they are taught, and they kind of think about that as a way to motivate behavior. I mean, given what we know about it, it doesn't really tell us much. In practice, a lot of what it translates into is be nice to people, right? If we're nice to them, maybe they'll be a little bit happier with their lot in life. But in fact, even the model doesn't predict being nice is going to work, right? And this issue of only having the option, basically, when it comes down to it, we have to change the world around the individual. It's not going to work. And plus, we have a lot of other individuals to consider. The whole division of labor is a factor here. It's just not going to work. And as we see in the III.A. reading that you had for this week, furthermore, there's no evidence that satisfaction increases productivity. It just doesn't. It's not a valid prediction. The model itself is very limited in the tools it provides for us. And as we concluded in the class, ultimately, what we're really interested in is more of a co-adaption system. Maybe we need to alter job characteristics, but we have reason to believe that people are highly adaptable and that people engaged in the right way, who have an opportunity to learn on the job, who have an opportunity to be fulfilled from the contributions that they make. Psychologically, there are other mechanisms. This needs satisfaction approach just never really panned out. It didn't pan out on the productivity side, and ultimately it's not very useful. You're going to run into people in your workplace, probably your boss at some point, who will say, I really like that Maslow's needs hierarchy. It's a great way to lead our people. And you can say, it's an interesting set of ideas, and I've learned some other stuff. And I learned some other stuff in business school, or the things that we're going to talk about basically in reinforcement systems, really getting beyond just the pay for performance notion and really the total social system of reinforcement that exists in the workplace. And then the psychological adaptivity the adaptive capacity of people is really core to what we'll be talking about in the social information processing model. And that ultimately is our core model that will take us through the rest of the course. On the further reading, a couple of, I think, interesting books is Robert Blauner, Alienation and Freedom, is a case study comparison of work in an automobile factory, a chemical manufacturing company, and in craft print shop. And he really talks about the nature of industry and the jobs in industry and how that impacts both this issue of alienation and then the freedom that people have and kind of latitude to express themselves through their work. And it's the printing industry really that's the epitome of that kind of expression in a historical sense. Printing industry has been one of the things most heavily automated, and a lot of the craft work has been extracted out of it. But it's an interesting comparison of kind of industry effects, and again, is very much in line with this kind of notion of need satisfaction and addressing alienation in the workforce. Ben Hamper's book, Reflections of a Rivethead. Ben Hamper is automobile worker works on an assembly line for General Motors. And he wrote a series of columns that were published in a variety of places. And so Reflections of a Rivethead is a collection of his columns that are talking about his experience in the workplace, which is pretty amazing. And we will talk about I'll use various examples drawn from the book. We used, had handed out one of the little short columns from Harper's that he wrote that we use today. We have another one coming up. But it's a really amazing book, and it's great insight into really the failure of American manufacturing and the real set of issues of this animosity that existed between the workforce and management. And really, it's very much a failure of a kind of scientific approach to managing the workforce where everything is controlled, and it turns out you can't control everything. The workers have a lot of discretion and latitude, and what he shows a lot of is the sorts of quality problems that plagued the industry in the 80s. That's much improved. People learned a lot from kind of Toyota methods of allowing people to have a lot more discretion and trusting them to bring forward their best game. And so in the Toyota way, one could argue, well, those are enriched jobs, but they're really a different kind of job. They actually engage people cognitively. And for us, that's really a couple of steps down the road. We're going to be super interested in that. So this is the summary for week 3. It's a short week for us. We only had the one topic area. And so I hope this is helpful to you.